This is part 3 of the previous one, named When the Dead Fall in Love. I remember the moment the ground split open. The crack beneath my coffin spread like a wound through the stone floor. Cold air rushed upward, sick and ancient, carrying a presence far older than my own restless spirit. For 200 years I had believed I was the master of this mansion. I was wrong. The darkness below us breathed. And then the voice came again. Finally. The basement trembled as shadows rose from the broken earth. They twisted slowly together until a tall figure formed in the darkness. Not like me. I had been pale, tragic, human once. This thing felt older than humanity. Elena stepped back beside me, her hand brushing my arm. I could feel the warmth of her skin clearly now. My heart, newly beating, pounded with a fear I had not known since the night I died. The figure finished forming. Tall, draped in shadows that moved like smoke. 2 faint silver eyes opened. I have waited centuries for this door to open. Adrian laughed nervously from the stairs. Oh, great, another ghost. The figure slowly turned its gaze toward him. You are not important. The air tightened. Adrian suddenly lifted off the ground like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. His smile disappeared instantly. Hey, wait! The shadow closed its hand. Adrian's scream echoed once, then silence. His body dropped to the stone floor. Still. Elena gasped softly beside me. The ancient spirit turned its gaze toward her. But something strange happened then. The shadows around it softened. You are the one who opened the grave? Elena swallowed. Yes. The spirit studied her quietly. I felt your fear. Its voice was not cruel, just old, very old. Then it looked toward me. And I felt your obsession. My jaw tightened. Elena is under my protection. The spirit tilted its head slightly. You mistake protection for possession. The words struck me harder than any weapon. I stepped forward anyway. I will not let you harm her. The ancient spirit watched me with something almost like curiosity. You are no longer fully dead. No, nor fully alive. I didn't answer. Elena stepped forward then. Who are you? The shadows around the figure slowly thinned, revealing a face both calm and ageless. My name was Kalen long before this house was built. His voice carried centuries within it. I was bound beneath this land when men feared what they did not understand. Elena stared. You were imprisoned? Yes. His eyes turned toward the broken grave. And you freed me. Silence filled the basement. Then Kalen asked gently, Why did you open the grave? Elena took a deep breath. Because I wanted my freedom. Kalen studied her for a long moment. Then something surprising happened. He smiled faintly. A reasonable desire. I felt something twist inside my chest. For 200 years I had dreamed of a connection, of not being alone. And yet the way Elena looked at him, there was no fear, only curiosity, even trust. I realized something painful then. She had never looked at me that way. Kalen extended a hand toward her.
Come. Elena hesitated. Where? Away from this prison. She glanced at me. I understood the question in her eyes. For the first time since her arrival, I stepped aside. The mansion creaked softly above us. I cannot leave this place, I said quietly, and you deserve more than another cage. Elena's voice softened. Lucien. I forced a faint smile. You gave me something I thought I lost forever. What? Life. My heart beat steadily in my chest, even if it would fade once she left. That is enough. Kaylin and Elena walked toward the basement stairs together, but before leaving, Elena looked back once more. Lucien, you're not alone anymore. I frowned slightly. What do you mean?
She pointed toward the open earth beneath the basement. You're free, too. I turned slowly toward the grave. For the first time in centuries, the mansion no longer felt like a prison. Just a house, empty, quiet, at peace. Outside, the storm had passed. Moonlight spread across the forest. Elena stepped out of the mansion and breathed deeply. Kaylin stood beside her, the night wind moving gently through the shadows around him. You are not afraid of me, he said. Elena smiled faintly. I've been kidnapped by a man and imprisoned by a ghost tonight. She glanced at him. You're actually the least terrifying one. Kaylin laughed softly, a sound ancient and warm at the same time. Then perhaps we will get along. They began walking down the old path away from the mansion. Elena looked at him curiously. So what happens now? Kaylin looked up at the moon above the trees. For centuries, I watched the world from darkness. He turned to her. Now I would like to see it again. With me? She asked. If you wish. Elena thought for a moment. Then she nodded. Yeah. And together they disappeared into the forest. Behind them, the old mansion stood silent under the moonlight. For the first time in 200 years, no ghosts remained inside. The forest was quiet after the storm. Moonlight filtered through the tall trees, painting silver patterns across the wet ground. The air smelled fresh, earth, rain, and something ancient that seemed to follow Kaylin wherever he walked. Elena wrapped her arms around herself as they moved deeper into the woods. She glanced back once. The old mansion stood far away now, barely visible between the trees. For the first time since she had been kidnapped, there were no locked doors, no watchers, no cages, just the night. She exhaled slowly. Freedom feels strange, she said. Kaylin walked beside her silently for a few moments before replying. It often does. His voice carried a calm weight to it, like someone who had seen centuries pass. You are not asking where I am taking you. Elena shrugged slightly. You saved me from Adrian. You didn't trap me like Lucien. She gave him a small smile. So I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. Kaylin looked down at her thoughtfully. You trust easily. Not really, she replied. I just trust my instincts. And what do they tell you now? Elena studied him. The shadows around his body moved gently, like slow smoke, but his presence no longer felt threatening, just powerful, old, lonely. They tell me you're not the kind of monster people think you are. Kaylin's gaze softened slightly. You would be surprised how often monsters are simply misunderstood. They reached a hill overlooking the valley below. In the distance, the faint lights of a town glowed against the dark horizon. Elena sat down on a fallen tree. So, how old are you really? Kaylin stood beside her, looking toward the distant lights. I walked this land long before those towns existed. Hundreds of years? More. Elena raised her eyebrows. Wow. She paused before asking quietly, "Were you always like this?" Kaylin shook his head slowly. "I was once human." That caught her attention. "Really?" "Yes." "What happened?" For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he spoke softly. "People feared what they could not understand. They believed my connection to the unseen world made me dangerous. And so they buried me alive beneath sacred ground." Elena's eyes widened. "That's horrible." "Yes, but death is not always the end." The wind moved through the trees around them. Elena looked at him again. "You must hate humans." Kaylin shook his head. "No." "Why not?" He glanced at her. "Because you exist." Elena felt her cheeks warm slightly. She quickly looked away. "Well, I'm not exactly the best example of humanity. You freed a spirit you did not understand." "That's true. You showed compassion to a ghost who imprisoned you." She sighed. "Okay, maybe I make questionable decisions." Kaylin smiled faintly. "For someone who claims to trust instincts, you question yourself often." Elena laughed softly. "You'd think centuries of wisdom would make you less observant." Quite the opposite. The night breeze picked up again. Elena shivered slightly. Without saying anything, Kaylin moved closer. The shadows around him shifted gently, blocking the wind. Warmth spread around her. She looked up at him. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." Silence settled between them again. But this silence was different from the mansion's suffocating quiet. This one felt peaceful. Elena finally spoke again. "So what now?" Kaylin turned toward the distant lights of the town. "The world has changed while I slept. Cars, phones, internet, reality shows." "Yes, I sensed as much." She grinned. "You're going to need a lot of catching up." "That is why I have you." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Am I your guide to the modern world now?" "If you are willing." Elena thought for a moment. Then she stood and stretched. "Well?" She looked down the hill toward the lights of civilization. "I don't really have a home anymore." Her life before tonight felt distant now, like it belonged to someone else. She turned back to Kaylin. "But maybe I could help an ancient spirit learn how the world works." "And maybe," she added, smiling slightly, "you can help me survive it." Kaylin extended his hand toward her. "Then we walk forward together." Elena took his hand. Unlike Lucian's cold, ghostly touch, Kaylin's felt steady, ancient, powerful, but gentle. They started walking down the hill toward the lights, toward a world neither of them fully understood anymore. Behind them, the forest whispered quietly, and far away inside the abandoned mansion, for a brief moment, a faint piano note echoed through the empty halls, as if Lucien was finally learning how to live with the silence. The night continued. And Alina's strange new life beside an ancient ghost had only just begun. Kalen's Povey. I had walked this earth long before iron roads, electric lights, and humming machines. Yet the strangest thing I had encountered in centuries was her. Alina walked a few steps ahead of me down the hill, carefully avoiding the wet stones. The moonlight rested on her hair like pale silver. I had watched countless humans in my long existence. Fearful ones, cruel ones, greedy ones. But she was something rarer. A human who had been trapped, threatened, nearly killed, and still carried kindness in her heart. It fascinated me, and that was dangerous. The town lights grew brighter as we approached. I could feel the pulse of modern life in the distance. Engines, electricity, thousands of minds moving in chaotic rhythm. It was overwhelming. For centuries, my world had been darkness and soil, silence and waiting. Now the world roared with life. Alina glanced back at me. "You're staring again?" I blinked slightly. "I apologize." She smirked. "You don't have to apologize every time you do something weird." "Weird?" "Yes." She gestured toward me. "You're an ancient spirit walking through the forest with a kidnapped woman at midnight."
She shrugged. "That's pretty weird." I considered this. "That is a fair assessment." She laughed softly. The sound was light and warm. For a moment, I simply listened. There had been a time when laughter surrounded me daily, a lifetime ago. We reached the edge of the town. Cars passed along the road with bright lights that cut through the darkness. I stopped. The machines rushed by like glowing beasts made of metal. Alina noticed immediately. "You okay?" "I am observing." She crossed her arms. "You look like someone who just discovered aliens." "In many ways," I said slowly, "I have." She studied my face carefully. "You're nervous." "I am not nervous." "You stopped walking." "I am evaluating." Elena smiled. "Right." She stepped closer and gently grabbed my wrist. "Come on, ancient spirit." Her hand was warm, steady. She pulled me toward the street. "You can't learn the modern world by hiding from it." Her words echoed in my mind. For centuries, I had been hidden beneath the earth, watching, waiting, alone. And now a human woman was dragging me into the bright chaos of the living world. It felt strange, but not unpleasant. We reached the sidewalk near a small convenience store glowing under fluorescent lights. Inside, a man stood behind a counter staring at his phone. Elena stopped walking. "So, first lesson." I looked around. "Lesson?" She pointed at the store. "That's where we're getting you clothes." I looked down at myself. My form still carried shadows that moved faintly around my body. "To blend in," she explained. "I do not require clothing." "You definitely do if you don't want people screaming." I looked through the glass door at the rows of colorful objects. Food, drinks, magazines. It felt like staring into a strange new world. "You are comfortable among these people?" I asked. Elena shrugged. "Not really." "Yet you walk into their world anyway." She looked at me seriously for a moment. "That's what living is." Her words settled deep within me. For centuries, I had existed between worlds. Not living,
not dead, just waiting. But now, something had changed. I looked at her again. You have altered the course of my existence. Elena blinked. That's a dramatic way to say I dragged you to a gas station. Nevertheless, I said calmly, it remains accurate. She laughed again and pushed the door open. A bell rang above us. The man behind the counter glanced up briefly, then went back to his phone without noticing anything strange. Elena grabbed a hoodie from a rack and handed it to me. Try this. I pulled the garment over my shoulders. The shadows around my body faded slightly. More solid, more human.
Elena nodded with satisfaction. See? Now you look like a mysterious guy instead of a supernatural horror. I looked at my reflection in the glass cooler door. For the first time in centuries, I almost looked like a man again. My gaze shifted to Elena beside me. You seem remarkably calm about all of this. She grabbed a bottle of water. I survived a ghost, a kidnapper, and a haunted mansion tonight. She shrugged. At this point, I'm just rolling with it. I studied her carefully. You are stronger than you realize. Elena rolled her eyes playfully. Careful, keep talking like that, and I might start thinking you like me. I paused, because the truth was, I already did. And that realization stirred something unfamiliar inside my ancient heart, something warmer than the cold centuries behind me, something that made the future feel possible. I followed Elena to the counter as she paid for the clothes, and for the first time in hundreds of years, I was not walking alone into the world. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe for more. Those who already subscribed, thank you.